Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope your day is starting off just great. Look at this beautiful picture behind me. This is Pyramid Mountain in Jasper National Park, Alberta, posted on the I Choose Canada group by Barbara. Thanks for posting it. Another magnificent picture of the beautiful scenery in our country. I chose this picture to display while I do the intro to this video because it's taken in Alberta. This story has an Alberta flair to it. Something strange, a strange dynamic is starting to shape up in politics in Canada. And when I say strange, you might already understand that it involves this guy here. Surprise. He has taken a very strange position. He's taken a position where he is diametrically opposed to this politician here. And it's a bizarro situation, which I researched and I'm going to present a little bit of a story here. Let me explain what's going on. Pierre Poilievre is leading his party, the Conservatives, to table a motion in the House of Commons. Conservative motion will force Liberals to put up or shut up on oil pipeline support, Poilievre says. And what this guy is quoted in saying is the following. The only thing that needs to happen for the project to go ahead is for the federal government of Mark Carney to get out of the way. Now, of course, he's talking about a pipeline project, a pipeline from Alberta to the west coast of BC. Grant a permit and let the construction begin. So his party is going to table a motion in the House of Commons, which will surely be defeated. Basically, as he said, in order for the project to go ahead, all we need to happen is for Mark Carney to get out of the way and let's get shovels in the ground and start construction. Now, before I get into there's more detail here, there is no project. There is no project ready to be approved. There is no company yet that has come forward and applied for approval of a project. There's no project that's going through environmental assessment. There's no project that's being discussed with Indigenous leaders. There's no project that the federal government is deciding whether they want to approve or not. There's no project that exists yet. There's no project that if Mark Carney gets out of the way, construction can begin. The whole idea of this motion is just a ridiculous exercise in misinformation and stupidity. And I'm going to get into the reason why I think he's doing this, but I have to point out that he's done this before. Back in August of this year, he had his Conservative Party table a similar motion. Poilievre says proposed, in that time they called it the Canadian Sovereignty Act, would legalize pipelines and major projects. He tabled a motion that he said, well, if we just pass this motion, all pipelines will become legal and we can start constructing them. And of course, that motion failed and it was ridiculous in its concept. We need to make pipelines legal. They're not legal now, and if we pass this motion, all of a sudden we will just be able to start constructing pipelines tomorrow. So why is he doing this? Well, let's step back a little bit further and some history here. After the election where Mark Carney was elected our Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre lost his own seat. But the House of Commons began to sit, and the first order of business, one of the first things that Mark Carney proposed was Bill C-5, this nation-building projects bill. And that bill went before the House of Commons and was passed unanimously with 100% consent from the Conservative Party, at that time led by Andrew Scheer, because Pierre Poilievre didn't have a seat. Conservatives voted overwhelmingly to support that bill, and that's the bill that now governs the process in which we can get nation-building projects moving forward quickly in Canada. There have been many projects added onto that list that are now fast-tracking their way to construction, and a few of those projects involve pipelines. There's, I think, 2 or 3 LNG projects that are on that list that are moving forward that will have pipelines that connect infrastructure from Alberta and British Columbia to the West Coast, where natural gas can be shipped to the West Coast, cooled into liquid form, and then shipped to Asian markets. Those projects are on the nation-building projects list already. There's potential to have an oil pipeline put on that list now. And recently, the federal government negotiated with Alberta and came up with this memorandum of understanding of a pathway to have an oil pipeline put on that list and start its way through the approval process and get fast-tracked to completion. An agreement that Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, was ecstatic about. She actually sounds very happy about the progress being made. Let's hear her for ourselves.
And I am pleased to say that this Prime Minister has made it clear to me that he is willing to work with me and Alberta's government to accomplish that shared goal. This agreement means the end of the punitive oil and gas emissions caps so that our great energy producers can grow and thrive again. This agreement means the immediate suspension of the federal net zero power regulations in Alberta, which had placed our electrical grid at a very serious risk of failure and limited any hope of substantial investment in AI data centers and applications development. This agreement includes a clear path to the construction of an over 1 million barrel per day Indigenous co-owned bitumen pipeline to Asian markets so that our province and our country are no longer dependent on just one customer to buy our most valuable resource. This agreement also allows for needed adjustments to the tanker ban when the new pipeline to Asia is approved by the Major Projects Office, as well as amendments that will ensure our companies are able to advertise their environmental leadership and efforts throughout the world without a fear of penalty. And this agreement also means that Alberta will be a world leader in the development and implementation of emissions reduction infrastructure, particularly in carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Alberta has a unique opportunity to show the entire world that the solution for reducing emissions does not entail capping productivity, growth, or innovation in oil and gas development. Rather, it is to leverage the profitability of the oil and gas sector to invest in the very technologies that will revolutionize all industries in their effort to reduce emissions globally. This agreement means Alberta will work with our federal partners and the Pathways companies to commence and complete the world's largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage infrastructure project. It will also make Alberta heavy oil the lowest intensity barrel on the market and displace millions of barrels of heavier emitting fuels around the globe.
So with that information now, ask yourself, why is this guy having his party put forth a motion that, well, all we need to do is get Mark Carney out of the way and the project can proceed and we can start construction right away, which is obviously just gibberish and nonsensical nonsense. As I explained, there is no project ready now. The Alberta government now, Danielle Smith's job now is to try and get a private company interested in building such a project. The two biggest pipeline companies in Canada, Trans Mountain and Enbridge, have both announced recently that they're upgrading their existing pipeline systems already. And those upgrades would add about 1 million barrels a day of capacity for the transport of oil in our country. They're already embarking on those investments. Those are the two companies that are probably most likely to undertake another new pipeline project. And Danielle Smith is now going to have to work to try and encourage them to propose the project. It's going to have to be one of those two companies or perhaps a consortium of more companies that'll have to come forward with the desire to want to build this project. And they'll have to formulate a plan and submit it for approval. That hasn't happened yet, but Danielle Smith is going to work towards that now. So why is this guy taking the stance that he is? Why is he coming up with this ridiculous motion that ignoring the consultations with Indigenous people that are required, ignoring the concessions that the Alberta government made as far as the carbon capture and the different commitments that Alberta made that will go hand in hand with a pipeline if it ever gets built? Ignore all that. Let's just get out of the way, Mark Carney. Let's just start building the project, which doesn't exist. Why is he taking that stand? Well, you might just say off the cuff that he's a Maple MAGA manipulating moron. And you wouldn't be too far off the truth with that statement. He knows full well that his motion is just a public relations stunt with no basis in fact. In fact, it's based on fantasy, directed towards his base. He knows this. He's not proposing it because he's stupid and he actually thinks that there's construction workers out there in BC ready to start constructing and Mark Carney is stopping them. He's not stupid enough to think that, well, if the federal government if Mark Carney just got out of the way, construction could just start on the project. He's not stupid enough to actually believe that the project exists and it's being held back right now. He's not that stupid. But the disgusting thing is this. He believes that the people that he's putting on this show for, the reason he's putting this motion forward, directed at his base. He believes that those people are stupid enough to eat this up. This is a show for them, and his total disdain for his supporters, his base that he needs to support him, especially come January when he's subject to a leadership review. He needs their votes in the leadership review. He needs to keep his base energized. And he thinks so little of them. He thinks they are so stupid that he can propose something that is a fictional fantasy, meaningless show, and that will be enough to convince them and energize them. That's how little and how stupid he believes his supporters are. His supporters mainly congregated in rural Alberta. And it's just so pathetic to me. It's just so disgusting. If you live in rural Alberta, if you vote Conservative, if you voted Conservative all your life, you're a staunch Conservative and you'll support any Conservative candidate. And you have a leader like this that is putting on this show of this motion, talking about let's get the project approved and just basically spewing out nonsense directed towards you. And you don't see that this guy is just spouting such stupidity and expects you to eat it up and get energized by it. If you don't actually understand how little he thinks of you, how stupid he thinks you are to be energized by this, that's the tactic that he wants to use on you to secure your vote, not to discuss things. Like Pierre Poilievre is an MP in Alberta now. Battle River in central Alberta, a large area between Calgary and Edmonton, around Red Deer and east of Red Deer. A lot of his constituents are rural Albertans that are probably very interested in getting energy infrastructure and pipelines built. He represents them now. But he's not supporting the Premier of Alberta. He's not saying things like, I'll work with Daniel Smith now to try and identify a private company to come forward to take on this project. I have a lot of clout now because I'm the leader of the opposition and my seat is in Alberta. So I'm going to work with Daniel Smith. I'm going to talk to Enbridge. I'm going to talk to Trans Mountain and other utility companies that could build this project. I'm going to work with them. I'm going to work with the government to make sure that an oil pipeline gets on this list. That's going to be my priority to help Alberta, my constituents that I represent. That would be how you proceed if you were communicating with your constituents, the people that you want to vote for you, and you treated them like intelligent people, thoughtful people with critical thinking skills, as the Premier of Alberta is doing right now. She's working for Alberta, and you heard her comments. She's working for her constituents, the province, to try and get a pipeline project going. But Pierre Poilievre is not treating his supporters as intelligent, rational thinking, critical thinking people. He's insulting them by presenting stupidity, thinking that they are so stupid that this will energize them. Like, how condescendingly pathetic is that? And how pathetic is it that a lot of them will eat this up? With all the progress that's been made, with Mark Carney and Daniel Smith working together and together making the announcement of the Memorandum of Understanding, to say in a national interview on CBC, the only thing that needs to happen for the project, which doesn't exist, to go ahead is for the federal government of Mark Carney to get out of the way, grant a permit. There's no project to grant a permit for, and let the construction begin. For someone who is the leader of the opposition, who desires to be the prime minister of our country, who has a seat in rural Alberta that represents constituents where a pipeline would make a difference, to say something so nonsensical like that, to me just illustrates the disdain that he has for his own supporters. He must think they are so stupid that they will eat this up. And it's such a bizarro tact to take in this particular instance with what's going on, the cooperation that's going on between Mark Carney and Daniel Smith. It's so out there to take a position that's against the Premier of Alberta. He must be implying that her deal is a waste of time and she's obviously not doing things right. All we need to do is get Mark Carney out of the way. He's positioned himself to the right in this bizarro make-believe world that there's a project ready to go, this nonsensical argument. That's his position now. It almost makes you think that Does he have a desire of becoming the Premier of Alberta? Is that his strategy? He wants to woo the voters of Alberta to back him. He's going to fight harder against the federal government than Daniel Smith is, so that when he loses his leadership review in January, he has an opportunity for another job. Are you wanting to be the Premier of Alberta and trying to get all the extreme right in that province to support you rather than Daniel Smith? Like, what's the strategy here? You can try and think of reasons. You can try to figure this out. But as I said, it's not that he is stupid. He's not stupid. It's that he believes that the people he needs to support him are stupid. The 50% of people that voted Conservative in this country that, according to a poll, think that Donald Trump is doing a good job. 50% of the people that voted for him in the last election, polled recently in Canada, believe that Donald Trump is doing a good job. Donald Trump, who's threatened Canada, wants Canada to become the 51st state. Donald Trump, who's imposed tariffs on our industries that have hurt Canadians, made Canadians unemployed. Donald Trump, who's recently said he's going to impose severe tariffs on potash, attacking Saskatchewan. 50% of the people that voted for him believe that Donald Trump is doing a good job. So why wouldn't he think that they're so stupid that they would believe this rhetoric, this motion that he's going to put forward here? Get out of the way, Mark Carney. The only thing that stands in the way of the project being approved, and construction should start tomorrow if you just get out of the way. It's the typical spewing of nonsense directed at his base, the same sort of stuff that Donald Trump does on his Truth Social account. He spews nonsense directed at his base. That's what this is. It just goes to show that this person is not a serious option to be considered for a prime minister. He's not a serious person that should be given the opportunity to lead our country. He's just an opportunistic buffoon who puts forward ridiculous nonsense calculated to try and benefit him, preying on the stupidity of his base. It's sad, but that's the only assessment I can come up with. I'm interested in your ideas and your comments. Leave them in the comment section. Let's get a discussion going here. I watch the news or I read the stories. It's always just reporting each individual story, but they don't tie everything together. They, in their extreme desire to appear impartial, they report this stuff like, it's emotion, it's normal, it makes sense. It doesn't make any sense. There's no project ready to be built. There's no project that if the Mark Carney gets out of the way, will just proceed and construction start. The whole thing is ludicrously stupid, but in the media, it's just in their endeavor to not appear one-sided, they'll just report this stuff. And unfortunately, by doing that, and different news organizations spinning it a certain way, there's probably people in Alberta that actually believe this. If Mark Carney just got out of the way, we could start building our pipeline tomorrow. We want our pipeline to get, but he's right. And of course, this motion will fail. And then in the coming weeks, we'll have Pierre Poilievre talking to reporters and saying, see, the Liberals are anti-pipeline. Mark Carney is anti-pipeline. We'll never get a pipeline built. He's fooled Danielle Smith. She doesn't know what's going on. She's anti-pipeline. Only I, Pierre Poilievre, am pro-pipeline. Vote for me, and then we'll get pipelines built tomorrow. You know, this is how you create misinformation and you divide people. Politicians like this that prey on the stupidity of the misinformed. That's my opinion. I'm interested in your comments. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and if you want to support my work on a monthly basis, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everyone, and I'll catch you all on the next one.